Hi, JC here with another Pacific Fen Spotlight. Today I'm at Green Lake in Seattle, Washington. It's a very beautiful park, very lovely lake behind me right here. It's definitely going to be one of the places you want to visit if you're ever in Seattle. Great place to bring the kids, I guarantee it. Today we asked the question, what is Filk? That's a kind of a dangerous question to ask. It's like asking 10 different people, what is the meaning of life? You're going to get 11 different answers. Same concept. So we'll be asking that question a little bit later. We'll also be doing a couple of movie reviews of the Spiderwick Chronicles and Jumper. A little late for the release, but something you'll definitely want to watch if you haven't seen the movies yet. And the trailing credits will have a couple of shots of Green Lake that we took. You'll definitely want to catch that out too. So now for our main feature, what is Filk? What do you define as filking? Yes, it is a loaded question.
Okay. I lean towards the idea that Filk isn't so much a style as a movement type group. In general, Filk tends to be science fiction folk music. That's the general definition. It tends to be somewhat of a default. So there's lots of songs about science fiction that is considered to qualify whether it's in folk style or not. There's a bunch of things that are in folk style that technically aren't science fiction that tends to count, especially, Cats, for example. So, science fiction folk music is a default, but it's not a defining.
Well, when people ask me, I just tell them that generally it's a genre of music that's associated with science fiction and fantasy, and in the not strictest sense, but lyrics that are written for existing music, but not necessarily. I mean, there's a lot of original music as well, and I keep it at that because otherwise people get confused.
For me, Filk starts off as more of a folk, a folk kind of feel, but it encompasses everything. It's the only kind of genre of music where one moment you're hearing something, like Billy Ray Cyrus, and the next moment you're hearing, what's a great example? Rush. It just encompasses everything, and it's a very free-form art that everybody can come together and appreciate.
It's the music of the science fiction fan community, which can be anything from folk to rock with science themes or science fiction themes or fantasy themes or even parodies, or sometimes it can just be whatever somebody feels like doing in a Filk circle. And so it's a pretty broad definition, and it's also kind of inclusive because you are not penalized for being talent challenged.
Usually I just say science fiction folk music, but it's more encompassing of that. I mean, the usual answer is just anything that gets used in a Filk circle. But it can be pretty wide ranging. We get all kinds: science fiction, fantasy, people doing Beatles songs for their own amusement, people doing all kinds of stuff. It's just a way to be expressive and creative for those of us where expression and creativity comes through music rather than writing prose or poetry or what have you.
Filk is the music played by and generally for science fiction fans. So it reflects fan social situation, fan sensibilities, fan concerns. People tend to assume that it'll be all about science fiction in some way, which isn't really true. It reflects the people that are interested in science fiction, which is a slightly different thing.
What is your definition of filking?
I will go by a very broad definition of what Filk is. I will go by a much narrower definition of the Filk that I tend to like. What Filk is to a large degree, I will go along pretty much with what's sung in a Filk circle. Or what is sung by someone who calls themselves a Filker. There are arguments whether, like, Weird Al is Filk or not. Weird Al has been approached about it. Weird Al does not define himself as a Filker, even though a lot of what he does is the same sort of parodies that the Filkers, Jeff and Maya Bonhoff, do. But for myself, I like the stuff that tends to be original tunes or close to it and tend to tell stories. That's what I fell in love with as a small child with Filk and has continued to capture me with it is the stories that people tell with the songs. There are entire authors and worlds that I only discovered because I heard the Filk song and went, wow, that sounds cool. I want to go read that. And then I discovered all of C.J. Sherry's science fiction that way. You know, it's like there was a tape called Finity's End, and I fell in love with the tape. So I went to go find out who all these characters everybody was singing about were, and fell in love with the worlds.
This is the ultimate question. What do you define as film?
To just go with the I know it when I see it, but to me a fairly general definition or category, Filk is quite literally the folk music of science fiction fandom, in the sense that to some extent we are all science fiction fantasy fans in whatever branch that goes into, from literature to TV, movies, anime, whatever. And it's the music we do ourselves. It's not going to make anyone a profit or make anyone a big star, although there are publishing companies and we have lots of CDs to buy in the dealer's room. And it generally is really about science fiction, fantasy topics from books, movies, TV, etc., from the writer's original stories or original situations, and then it overflows into the more mundane, relevant areas that just interest us. So there are a lot of Filk songs about the space program that actually exists, and some about the space program that we wish would exist. Computers and high tech and cats are other favorite topics.
So as you can see, there's no one definitive answer to the question, what is Filk? Save for the fact that that's a lot of fun. At least that's my opinion. So my first movie review is of the Spiderwick Chronicles. It's a great movie, definitely something you want to take the kids to. 10 and up, though. A little younger may not be suitable. It stars Freddie Highmore and Nick Nolte. Very fantastical movie, very very kind of cliche storyline of good versus evil, but has a few interesting twists that I think you'll like. Great cinematography, wonderful direction. The acting was phenomenal. Freddie Highmore just does this fantastic job. Nick Nolte, even though he's getting on and kind of losing his touch, he does a really good performance in this, I think. Special effects were maybe not that special, but one good thing about them is they fit in seamlessly. You literally believed everything that was there was actually there, and that's, I think, the real true mark of special effects. So that is definitely a movie you want to see, especially if you can see it in the big theater. If you're really, really worried about cost, see it in the matinee, but I would say it's definitely worth it to even see it during full price. Definitely want to see it on that big screen. The next movie I saw was Jumper, and I'm really sorry to have seen this movie. The movie itself wasn't that bad. The script was mediocre, okay. The direction was okay. The cinematography and the special effects were actually pretty cool. But and overall the movie would have been worth it to at least see it at the matinee. It would have been. The big problem I had with this film was Hayden Christensen. Why they cast this person as the starring role, I do not know. Maybe he was banging the casting director, but not even Samuel L. Jackson, Mr. Bad Mother himself, could save this film from the poor acting that is Hayden Christensen. This man does not belong in movies. So avoid this movie at all costs. End of story. That's all we have time for now. Keep an eye out for our upcoming shows. We'll be doing a show on Worldcon, a show on SoccerCon. We'll even be doing a piece on the Seattle Worldcon bid for 2011. Definitely want to keep an eye out for that one. Until next time, this has been JC reminding you to get your geek on with Pacific Fen Spotlight.
Away, I find
morning.